What happens when a CEO goes undercover in his own kitchen and watches a chef scream in the face of a teenage worker? Nathaniel Sutter bought the pasta chain 10 years ago, back when it had only 3 stores and a dream of becoming something bigger. Now, there were 19 locations across the state. The food was good, prices fair, and the brand was growing. But lately, something had been bothering him. Online reviews had dipped for location 13, a mid-sized store in a college town. The complaints weren't about the food, they were about the atmosphere. Rude staff, hostile kitchen, felt tense the whole time. Nathaniel had asked his district manager about it. They're just busy. Staff turnover's been rough, nothing serious. Still, it nagged at him. He hadn't met the staff at that store personally. It was one of the newer locations acquired through a franchise buyout, and most of the team had stayed on, including the head chef. With a new summer menu launching, he saw the perfect chance. He'd go undercover as a trainee line cook. He got a full disguise, graying hair, fake stubble, a pair of thick glasses, and a backstory as Neil, a recently divorced guy looking for a fresh start and a steady paycheck. HR helped set him up in the system as a temp hired through a staffing agency, something the stores occasionally used during short-staffed weeks. Nobody at location 13 had ever met him before, and since it was a corporate chain with a big team, no one questioned the new guy. It was a hot Monday morning when Nathaniel, now Neil, walked through the back door in a plain black t-shirt and jeans. The kitchen was already humming. Pans clanged, water boiled, and music played low from someone's phone. A woman in her 20s with a messy ponytail and flour on her cheek turned around. "You the new temp?" "That's me, Neil," he said, sticking out his hand. "I'm Haley. Just follow me and try not to die from the heat." He chuckled and stepped in behind her, already sweating. The head chef walked in 5 minutes later, barking orders before he even saw who was new. "Who's the fresh meat?" "Neil," Haley answered. "Temp cook, sent from agency." The chef squinted at him. "Whatever, just keep up and don't mess up the Alfredo." His name was Marco, and he ran the kitchen like a drill sergeant. Every sentence was sharp. He didn't say please or thank you. Nathaniel had worked kitchens before he knew stress was normal. But this was something else. By noon, Nathaniel had burned his hand twice, gotten yelled at for mixing up sauce trays, and was still trying to figure out where the prep knives were kept. He didn't mind struggling. What bothered him was how no one seemed to care whether he learned anything. Except one person. A quiet teenage boy, maybe 16 or 17, kept helping him behind the scenes. "Hey, you put that too close to the flame," he whispered once. Another time, he nudged him gently and passed him the right ladle. "Thanks." "What's your name?" Nathaniel asked during a short break. "Victor." "You always this helpful?" Victor shrugged. "Just don't like seeing people get yelled at." Nathaniel smiled. "Appreciate you." Victor nodded and went back to chopping onions. The afternoon rush hit hard. Orders flew in, and the kitchen turned into chaos. Nathaniel was manning the pasta boiler when he saw Victor holding a tray of finished lasagna plates, waiting for the counter to clear. A plate slipped. It wasn't his fault someone had bumped into him. The plate hit the floor with a crash. Marco spun around. "What the hell, Victor?" Victor froze. "It slipped someone." "Don't stutter at me! You think this is a joke? That was $20 of food wasted. I didn't mean to." "You don't mean anything. You're slow. You talk like a child, and you don't belong in my kitchen." The room went quiet. Nathaniel stood there, stunned. Victor looked like he'd been punched in the gut. His hands trembled. He bent down to pick up the broken plate. "Don't bother," Marco snapped. "Go clean the toilets or something. That's all you're good for." Nathaniel's heart pounded. He looked around. No one said a word. Haley looked down at her shoes. Another guy turned away, like it was normal. Nathaniel tightened his grip on the spoon in his hand. His jaw clenched. He wanted to speak up, but he couldn't blow his cover. Not yet. He needed to know how deep this went. He needed to see more. By the time the last dinner plate left the pass and the kitchen lights dimmed to their after-hours glow, Nathaniel's shirt clung to his back like a second skin. His arms ached from the hours at the pasta station, and the soles of his shoes were soaked from standing near the dish pit. But none of that compared to what he couldn't shake, the look on Victor's face when Marco tore into him. "Clock out, everyone," Marco called out. already halfway out of his apron. "Clean up, crew. You know what to do. Don't leave until it's spotless." Nathaniel wiped down his station in silence. Victor was crouched near the walk-in fridge, gathering discarded produce into a waste bin. He moved like someone trying not to be noticed. Nathaniel grabbed a rag and started wiping the prep counter beside him. "You all right?" he asked, keeping his voice low. Victor nodded too quickly. "You don't have to pretend," Nathaniel said. That wasn't okay. "I'm used to it," Victor muttered. "It's worse when he's not yelling. That's when he starts messing with your hours." Nathaniel frowned. "What do you mean messing with your hours?" Victor hesitated, then tossed a bruised tomato into the bin. "If you make him mad, he cuts your shifts, says you're unreliable. Last week I was supposed to get 5 days, ended up with 2. Do you talk to anyone about it?" Victor's shoulders tensed. "Tried once. The assistant manager told me to stop causing drama." Nathaniel narrowed his eyes. "What's the assistant manager's name?" "Trina," Victor said. "She's not like Marco, but she covers for him. Always says we're lucky to have someone who runs a tight ship." Nathaniel didn't respond. He just kept cleaning until Victor walked away. An hour later, the kitchen was empty except for Nathaniel and Haley, who stayed behind to finish the floors. She dragged the mop bucket to the back and leaned on the handle, wiped sweat from her forehead with her sleeve, and exhaled. "You don't have to stay," she said without looking at him. "Temps don't usually bother." "Figured I'd help. You've been on your feet since I got here." She gave a small shrug. "We all have. That's just how it goes here." Nathaniel crouched to scrape something hardened off the baseboard. "You been here long?" 10 months, she said. "Longer than most. People come and go." "Marco doesn't make it easy." "What's keeping you?" She paused, considering. "I'm saving up for nursing school. This was supposed to be temporary. But every time I get close, something happens. Car breaks down, rent goes up. It's like the finish line just keeps moving." He looked over at her. She wasn't complaining, just stating facts, but there was something tired in her voice. The kind of tired that didn't go away after one night's sleep. "Why hasn't anyone reported him?" Nathaniel asked carefully. Haley leaned against the counter. "Who's going to listen? Corporate's a phone number. Marco's got friends up the chain he used to work with the district manager at their last job. Nobody wants to step on toes." That caught Nathaniel off guard. "He's close with the DM?" "Yeah, they talk almost every day. That's why he gets away with everything. One time, a dishwasher quit mid-shift after Marco threw a pan at the wall. HR called. Marco spun it like the kid was unstable. Next week, he was promoted to head trainer." Nathaniel straightened slowly. "He's in charge of training others?" Haley nodded. "For the newer stores. He goes out, shows them how to run things like he does here. Management thinks he's some kind of miracle worker because numbers look good on paper. They don't see the burnout." Nathaniel felt something cold settle in his chest. If Marco was shaping leadership culture in other stores, the damage could spread far beyond this kitchen. The following morning, Nathaniel returned early. He found Victor already prepping mushrooms, shoulders hunched, earbuds in. Nathaniel didn't speak, just joined him at the cutting board. They worked in silence until Trina walked in. She was in her 30s with sharp features and a clipboard tucked under one arm. "You must be Neil," she said, eyeing him briefly. "Marco told me you were average, but not a complete disaster. That's high praise from him." Nathaniel wiped his hands on a towel. "I try to keep up." "Well, don't get too comfortable," she said, flipping through the schedule. "We're over budget on labor this week. If you're not pulling your weight, you'll be the first off the clock." Victor's knife slowed beside him. Trina walked off without another word. Nathaniel waited until she was out of earshot. "She always like that?" Victor gave a small nod. "She doesn't yell like Marco, but she watches everything. If you take too long in the bathroom, she writes it down." After a quiet breakfast shift, Marco arrived late, carrying a cup of designer coffee and talking on Bluetooth. He didn't acknowledge anyone, just walked in, criticized the prep layout without explaining what was wrong, and grabbed the clipboard from Trina's station. Nathaniel noticed something strange. Marco barely touched any of the actual cooking. He barked instructions, hovered over others, and disappeared for long stretches. At one point, Nathaniel walked past the back loading dock and saw Marco on the phone, laughing and smoking. He was gone for nearly 30 minutes. Later that afternoon, a food delivery arrived. The truck driver waited by the back door as Marco scrolled through his phone. "You signing for this?" the driver asked. Marco didn't look up. "Leave it on the dock. I'll get to it. I need a signature." Marco sighed loudly and waved Trina over. "Handle this." She signed without checking the invoice. Nathaniel took a photo of the slip when no one was looking. Some things didn't feel right. Dinner rush hit harder than the day before. Orders stacked up. One of the fryers broke down. Victor was running between the prep table and the cold station, trying to cover 2 rolls. Nathaniel stepped in to help him plate a chicken parm. As he reached for the garnish, he noticed Victor's hands shaking. "You eaten today?" Nathaniel asked. Victor blinked. "Not since breakfast." "When was that?" "Before school." Nathaniel pushed a plate into his hands. "Go grab something. I'll cover you." "I can't. Marco will freak." "Go." Victor hesitated, then slipped into the break room. Nathaniel turned back to the stove just as Marco returned. "Where's the kid?" he demanded. "Bathroom," Nathaniel lied. Marco grunted and walked off. 10 minutes later, Victor returned with a sandwich half-eaten in his hand. He looked grateful, but nervous. As the night wound down, Nathaniel pulled Haley aside. "Does anyone ever get breaks here?" She gave a humorless laugh. "Technically, yeah, but Marco says we're understaffed, so if you take one, you're putting the team behind." Nathaniel's jaw tensed. "What about meals?" "Only if you work a double. Even then, some people skip it because they don't want the guilt trip." That was enough. By closing, he had a plan. He stayed behind to help Victor finish dishes, then pulled out his phone and sent 3 messages. One to HR, one to legal, and one to the board. The next morning, he would walk in as himself. And this time, he wouldn't be silent. Nathaniel walked in at 7:42 a.m. the next morning, not as Neil in a sweat-stained t-shirt, but as himself. Button-down shirt, clean slacks, and a folder tucked under one arm. No disguise, no alias, just the founder of the company stepping into his own kitchen unannounced. The assistant manager, Trina, was at the front counter tallying receipts. She looked up, blinked once, and froze. Her hand hovered mid-air above the till. "Morning," Nathaniel said, calm but direct. She set the receipts down like they were suddenly radioactive. "Mr. Sutter? I didn't know you were coming." "I didn't announce it?" He walked past her and through the swinging kitchen door. Haley was setting up the prep station. Victor was slicing bread near the walk-in cooler. Marco wasn't in yet. Haley turned, confused. Then her eyes widened. "Good morning," Nathaniel said, meeting her gaze. "Don't stop. Just keep doing what you're doing." Victor looked up, uncertain. He held the bread knife awkwardly, unsure whether to drop it or not. "You're doing fine," Nathaniel said to him. "Stay right where you are." The entire kitchen went quiet except for the hum of the refrigeration units. A few other staff trickled in, whispering to each other. Nobody had seen him in person before they only knew the name from the company posters and training videos. Trina came in behind him, trying to keep her voice steady. "Would you like to speak in the office? I can—" "No," Nathaniel said. "We're doing this in the open, where everyone can hear." She flinched slightly but nodded. At 8:06, Marco strolled in through the back entrance, texting with one hand and holding a half-eaten bagel in the other. He didn't notice Nathaniel until he was nearly at the pass. When he did, he stopped cold. Nathaniel turned to face him. "Morning, Marco." Marco looked at Trina, then back at Nathaniel. "Didn't know you were visiting us." "I know," Nathaniel said. "You've met me before?" "No, but, I've seen your videos." "Good. Then you also know I care about how this company runs, not just what it makes." Marco said nothing. Nathaniel set the folder down on the prep table. 3 days ago, I started working in this kitchen as a temp, under a different name, no cameras, no announcements, just a shirt, an apron, and a shift schedule. The staff was still and silent. I wanted to see what was happening here. I'd heard rumors, complaints from customers. A few things that didn't add up. He looked at Marco, and what I found was a toxic, hostile kitchen, a place where fear is more common than feedback, where employees are overworked, undertrained, and disrespected. Marco's face tightened. It's a high-pressure environment. People get emotional. Nathaniel held up a hand. I listened to you scream at a 17-year-old for being bumped into. I watched you disappear for half an hour while your team drowned in tickets. I saw Trina sign off on deliveries without verifying inventory. And I heard from more than one employee that taking scheduled breaks is considered disloyalty. Trina opened her mouth, but he didn't give her the chance. I've already contacted HR. As of this moment, Marco, you are terminated permanently. You will not return to this or any other location. I've also instructed legal to review all training procedures you've implemented at other stores. If we find similar patterns, further action will be taken. Marco's jaw twitched. You can't just, I can, and I have. You're done. Trina looked pale now. I didn't know everything going on. Marco handled most. You've been aware of the work culture here. You've watched it happen. You've enabled it. And you've contributed to it. He turned to face the staff. If anyone here has experienced retaliation, harassment, or threats because they asked for help or spoke up, I want to hear about it. Not tomorrow, not next week, today. No one spoke. Then Haley stepped forward. I asked for a proper 30-minute break 3 weeks ago, she said, her voice steady. Trina said if I took it, I'd lose my Friday doubles. I lost them anyway. Nathaniel nodded. Thank you. Trina tried again. I was just following the labor budget. We don't have enough people to... You cut hours from the same employees you overworked. You called it optimization. I call it neglect. He stepped closer. You're terminated as well, effective immediately. Turn in your keys and logins before you leave. Trina stood frozen for a second, like she hadn't processed the words. Then, slowly, she reached into her pocket and dropped a ring of keys on the prep counter. She walked out without another word. The silence that followed was thick, not fearful, but stunned. Nathaniel turned to the team. The store will open 1 hour late today, not because we're short-staffed, but because we need to reset how things are done here. He looked at Victor. You're 17? Victor nodded cautiously. You're still in school? Yes. I saw how you looked out for others in the kitchen, stepping up without being asked. That's leadership, and we need more of it. Victor seemed unsure how to respond. He kept glancing at the others, like he expected someone to stop this. You've been promoted to paid team assistant. It's part-time, flexible around your school, and you'll have a mentor from another location to make sure you're supported. Victor blinked. I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything yet. Just know that I saw you. He turned to Haley. You've been holding this place together longer than anyone should have too. I tried, she said, but it felt like nothing changed. It will now. You're being promoted to interim kitchen lead. We'll bring in a regional trainer to support you until a new GM is hired, and your tuition for nursing school the next semester is on the company. She stared at him. You're serious? Dead serious. Her eyes welled, but she took a breath and stood taller. Nathaniel addressed the kitchen again. This isn't about one store. This is about the kind of company we want to be. Good food isn't enough. If the people making it are treated like they don't matter, then nothing we serve is worth eating. He paused. I can't change what you went through under Marco and Trina, but I can make sure it doesn't happen again. That starts today. A few heads nodded. Someone exhaled long, like they'd been holding it in for months. Nathaniel picked up the folder, tucked it under his arm, and added one final thing. If you ever feel like you're not being heard, you don't need a title to speak up. You just need a voice. And now, you have mine. The doors to the restaurant stayed locked for that extra hour. No music played, no burners were lit. The only sound in the kitchen was the shuffle of shoes on tile as the staff stood in a loose half circle, waiting. Nathaniel stood at the center with a clipboard, now not the one he'd used for evidence, but a clean one. A regional HR advisor had arrived 20 minutes earlier and was quietly observing from the end of the prep line. No one had spoken much since the announcement the day before. No one was sure what came next. Nathaniel cleared his throat. We're going to run short today. That's not a secret. But we're not going to run the same way we did before. No one asked questions. No one interrupted. I've arranged for 2 shift leads from nearby locations to rotate in for the next week. They'll help lighten the load and train on updated standards. You won't be left picking up someone else's slack. One of the younger cooks, Dev, a quiet guy with a perpetual furrow between his eyebrows, raised his hand slightly. What about scheduling? We never knew the week until the night before. Nathaniel nodded. That changes now. Schedules will be posted 3 days in advance, bare minimum. If that doesn't happen, you call it in." "Who do we call?" Haley asked. He gestured to the HR advisor. "Angela. She's your point of contact until we finalize a new general manager. Every complaint goes through her, every concern. No more filters, no more excuses." Victor, standing near the back, shifted his weight and spoke up. "Will Marco be back at all, even just to drop stuff off?" Angela answered before Nathaniel could. "He's barred from the premises. If he appears, you call security. That's already been communicated to him in writing." Victor nodded once and looked down again. Nathaniel glanced at the group. "I know some of you have been running on fumes. That doesn't fix overnight, but you'll get proper breaks starting today. If the floor can't spare someone for 10 minutes to eat or breathe, then the system's broken, not the worker." Dev looked up again. "Will we still be expected to finish close, even if we're short?" "You finish what's safe and necessary. Nobody's clocking out at 2 in the morning because we're understaffed. We're scaling back the menu temporarily. That means fewer prep items, less waste, and simpler execution." He flipped a page on his clipboard. "Friday's back of house, head count drops from 9 to 6. You'll run a reduced set, 4 pastas, 3 proteins, 2 salads. That's it until support staff is stabilized." There were no cheers, just a quiet, almost stunned relief. Angela stepped forward. "We'll also be holding individual check-ins this week, 15 minutes per person. Off the floor, paid. You'll be asked for input on what's working and what isn't. Nothing you say will be held against you." A pause. Then Haley asked, "What about pay? Are we still stuck at the old rate until raises are reviewed?" Nathaniel shook his head. "Starting today, all non-management kitchen staff here receive a $2 raise, permanent. That includes part-timers." Victor's mouth parted slightly like he wanted to say something but couldn't find the words. Nathaniel looked at him. "You're not exempt, Victor. That raise applies to you too." Victor finally spoke. "I've only been here 2 months. You've earned it in 2 days." Nathaniel stepped back and gestured toward the walk-in. "Start your stations. Angela will float between sections. I'll be staying through lunch to observe." The team slowly broke apart, each person drifting back to their prep area. The kitchen didn't erupt into motion. It moved gradually, like a machine restarting after being left too long in the cold. Haley took charge of the hotline, guiding the junior prep cook, a girl named Saima, who had barely spoken the day before. Dev ran inventory with one of the new support leads who'd arrived from the downtown location. Victor returned to cold prep, organizing ingredients with more confidence than before. Nathaniel stayed out of the way, watching, listening. He didn't jump in unless asked. He knew better than to insert himself into a system that needed space to breathe. During lunch, a customer asked to speak with the manager. Haley stepped forward, hesitant. The older woman at the table pointed at her breadsticks. "They're hot, fresh, and not burned for once," she said, smiling. "Tell whoever made them to keep doing that." Haley nodded, stunned. "I will, thank you." Nathaniel saw her grin as she walked away. Not wide, just enough to show it meant something. Later that afternoon, he pulled Victor aside during a lull. "I need to ask you something," Nathaniel said, leaning against the dry goods shelf. Victor wiped his hands on a towel. "Am I in trouble?" "No, I want to know why you stayed." Victor blinked. "Here? You could have quit. No one would have blamed you." Victor hesitated. "My brother used to cook. He got me the job, said it'd teach me discipline. He passed away in November." Nathaniel's posture shifted slightly. "I'm sorry. I didn't want to leave something he helped me start, even when it got bad." Nathaniel took a breath. "Thank you for telling me. That matters." Victor nodded slowly. "I want you to be involved in the redesign of the next training module," Nathaniel said. "Not just as a trainee, your voice, your input, from someone living it." Victor's brows furrowed. "But I'm not even out of high school. All the more reason. That perspective's missing." Victor didn't respond right away. But something in his face changed, less guarded, more steady. By the end of the day, the kitchen hadn't run flawlessly. They misfired 2 orders, ran out of mozzarella by mid-afternoon, and one of the new support leads had overcooked a batch of penny. But no one yelled, no one stormed out, and no one was left to clean alone. Nathaniel stayed until close, watching the team put away pans and wipe down steel counters. When the lights dimmed and the ovens went cold, he gathered them near the prep line. Today wasn't perfect, but it was honest, and that's the first step. No one said a word, but a few nodded. I won't be back tomorrow. But someone will. Not to watch over you, to support you. This isn't surveillance, it's stewardship. He looked around the room one last time. Leadership isn't about control, it's about responsibility. And I let things slip too far without seeing it for myself. That won't happen again. This time, when he turned to leave, they let him. No one followed. No one tried to say something clever or dramatic. The door closed behind him with a soft click. Inside, the staff stayed a moment longer before finishing up. They'd open again tomorrow, not as a perfect team, but as a better one.